Hey ladies, are you a conservative woman just trying to find a podcast that isn't speaking propaganda right now? I get it. I'm with you. I'm here for you. We all need some encouragement and godly wisdom to remind us we are on the right track, to remind us of our identity as God's daughter. That's why I'm here, to help you grow spiritually so that no matter what life or the world throws at you these days, you cannot be shaken. It's here you're going to hear stories of women who have become victors where they were once victims. You're going to hear God's word to help you stand strong and push back the darkness. You're going to hear wisdom that is not of this world to keep you focused on Jesus. I don't know where you're at today, but I do know God is meeting you right there. He wants to bring you closer to Him. Throughout this podcast, you're going to hear bits and pieces of the pit, the trials, the difficult seasons the Lord has brought me through, so you know you're not alone. We're going to walk together and grow in our relationship with Jesus, because really that's what it's all about anyway. So join me as we seek truth, share overcomer stories, and just learn what it is to lean into the Lord. God is good. He has a good plan for our lives, and we can trust Him. My name is Meredith. Welcome to Guiding God's Daughters. Let's get real and go deep.
All right. Well,
No.
yeah. So, that was beautiful. I always love hearing that story, especially like in a more intimate setting like this. It's always nice. And so, I'm sure many are probably listening thinking, oh, so maybe she was pressured into doing whatever she wants to do. And it's like it did not happen like that at all. And if anything, especially what happened in 2009, I would say was more the pivotal moment for me of realization of, oh, so this is what the pro-life movement looks like. And I always appreciated my mom for being age appropriate over the years and just being honest with me when I had certain questions that would come up, and especially like knowing or just explaining that to your kid, like as something
Yeah.
as gruesome as abortion, it needs to be handled so delicately. And I think she did a really great job at explaining kind of in the scope and age appropriate of what an abortion was. And to
Mhm.
my understanding, it was just, a woman could end her pregnancy. And I think that was just really hard to understand, like how anyone would want to do that. Of course, when you get older, things start getting more complicated, and you have to find your own identity and find who you're supposed to be kind of without your parents, right? You as your own person.
Mhm.
And that exactly was what I was figuring out. And I would say it really started in high school. And I was a peer minister at my high school. So what that meant is I was part of a smaller group of religious leaders, and we would hold retreats and we would pray for the rest of our classes. And so one of the things that was an annual thing is we were known to host retreats for certain classes. And my junior year, we hosted a retreat for the freshman class, and there were always four people who would speak. And I felt a calling of maybe it's time, maybe I do share something, and maybe it could turn into something. And so my mom helped me submit the application to basically apply to be one of the four speakers in this retreat, and I was approved. And so I practiced it, rehearsed it with my mom, and my mom was also able to actually come to the talk where I spoke in front of about 100 people in front of the entire freshman class at my high school. And this was the first time that I had shared our pro-life testimony, but kind of more coming from my perspective as well. So this was the first time. I was 17 years old, and so that then it started to grow from there. And I was very nervous. Like I was doing theater all in high school, so I was luckily that was one of the gifts that God has given me, was public speaking and not caring what people think. And both of those ideas, like, you have to have in this movement. I feel like once you get to a point where you're comfortable speaking in front of people, and once you get to a point of I don't care what people think of me, like there's nothing stopping you.
Yep.
You just feel fearless, and you can do whatever that you need to do to fulfill those goals. And so from there, in the spring of my junior year, following my talk, our teacher, Mr. Shannon, had taken us to a retreat in Tampa, known as the pro-life rally in Tampa and Salesian rally. And so when we got there, I didn't know what to expect, but I wanted to bring a pro-life sign that I had made when my mom and I would go outside of Planned Parenthood. And so I brought it and it said, "My mom chose life." And so it was cool because all of the students like loved my poster and we just took pictures with it and all that. So when we were at this retreat, I saw this speaker, Stephanie Gray, who's now Stephanie Gray Connors, and she is phenomenal. She is one of the best pro-life speakers, I think, in our generation. And I was completely floored when I saw her, and I was in complete awe. And she really inspired me. Stephanie Gray has podcasts. She also has a book called Love Unleashes Life. And when I saw her, I think it was a realization for me that not only could I go around sharing my story with people, but I could share pro-life apologetics. And what I mean by apologetics is that you can make a very good case in your argument to further the pro-life side through means of research, scientific facts, statistics, and making it unapologetically that like there's such good arguments that you have no choice but to agree with it. And that's exactly what she did. And I know she achieved this because there were friends of mine who were on the retreat who were very much in the middle on the issue. And she even had them questioning their views. So I was like, wow, this girl's good. She was using she was using really good metaphors, and you're like, wow, I wonder how she's going to bring this back to the abortion topic, but she always brought it back in the best and most articulate way. And so that it was that really just propelled me to be like, okay, after seeing that, that's what I want to do. I think that's what I want to do with my life. And so the end of my junior year, I applied for an internship, or sorry, not in college yet. I was like, wait, no, that doesn't sound right. So in the junior year of high school, I was going into my senior year and I felt called to start the first pro-life club at my high school, at my college, or at my Catholic high school that didn't have a pro-life club. And so I started the pro-life club, obviously became president, got some people involved, and my mom also was able to tag along when I got everyone to go to the first March for Life we had ever been to, and we got to represent the high school for the first time. And I think it was extra special because my mom and I are both alum of the same high school. So I think that was just even more special that we were able to do that. And I loved attending the march. And of course, it's just something about being part of that environment where it's full of love and support. And I really truly mean that. And I hope people can see that because we're not one to judge or shame women. We really do love women and we want the best for them. And so that's why we're part of this movement because we believe women deserve better than abortion. So after that, I applied for colleges and I felt called to go to the University of San Diego. So I went from Florida all the way to California for college. Fun fact, I was the one who went the furthest in my class, actually, in my high school class, which I like sharing. So I definitely was like that kind of odd one. I always just felt like that person that was different and that person that wanted to do the thing that was different. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. I think it makes you unique as a person and you can follow, your callings in a special way. And so God was calling me to the University of San Diego. And I have to be honest with you, there were times where I really struggled with why me? Why did I have to go to USD? Like I looked at it as more of it was very much a struggle. It was like, okay, I think I know what I'm supposed to do, and now I don't. And so it was very much like that over the course of a few years. And my freshman year, I made sure to join the Students for Life group. And of course, by the name of it, you can only imagine that would be a pro-life club, you would think. So I get there, I get involved, and then I end up being the social media chair for the club for 2.5 years. So a pretty long time. And then COVID hit. And what I started to realize about the club was the club started talking about things that, it was more of all life is valuable and all life is precious and womb to the tomb. And while that's great and that's important, I started to catch on to the idea that our club was no longer unique from all of these other clubs, where you have human trafficking club, the homelessness club, all of these other things that they're great to talk about. But then what happens is I'm known as the pro-life girl in the Students for Life Club, and we put abortion on the back burner. And so what happened is I had this struggle of that would be so heartbreaking if I left, because I just would feel so like I didn't get to do anything that I wanted to do. So towards the end, and when COVID hit my junior year of college, I started to question, okay, is this what I'm supposed to be doing, or am I supposed to be doing something else? Because I feel held back right now. That's truly how I felt. And I felt like I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. And even though I voiced them, it seemed like I was getting a lot of pushback from the leadership, but also the moderator of the club, who had been there for a while. And she definitely didn't like it when I was questioning her on, I was very confused on the fact that it was a Students for Life club. And when I had just asked her, like, do we have, like, are we associated with the national organization? Because I'm just a little confused. And she would get very defensive about it. And like, you know what? I prayed about it. I talked to my mom about it, and I ended up leaving. And that was very difficult. But I didn't see the bigger picture yet of what was supposed to happen after that. So after I left the club, I actually ended up becoming, I think at that point I was already president of College Republicans, and I was trying to get it moving, now being in a pandemic. And so we made it work. We had Zoom online. We had meetings when we could, weekly, and that was great because the election was happening around that same time. But I knew in my heart, I was like, I need to make a pro-life focus in this club, because if we don't do it, clearly no one else is going to. So that summer, I was inspired yet again when I interned for Marjorie Dannenfelser at Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, which is a huge pro-life and political organization. And I worked for James Pratt, who is the assistant to Marjorie Dannenfelser. So I worked for both of them. But James was really more the liaison between me and Marjorie. And so I worked with him, and really full circle moment. So when I met him for the first time, first day of work, well, internship, big girl things, right? So first day, I meet James and we go to his office because we're going to talk about the day. And I noticed he had Notre Dame memorabilia all over the room. And so I said, "Oh, you went to Notre Dame?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, my entire family went there. Like literally, like my grandparents, my parents, my cousins, like everyone goes there." And I was like, "Obviously, I didn't go there, but I was like, that Notre Dame's a huge deal in my family." So he laughed about that, and then he said he went there, and most of his siblings went there as well, except for one. He's one of nine, and so it's so crazy. So most of the Pratts went to Notre Dame. They kind of followed each other's footsteps, and we laughed because it just seemed like a similar pattern in my family. And so then I asked him, I was like, "Do you remember in 2009 when Obama came and he was invited to speak, and he was even awarded like a degree?" And he was like, "Yeah, oh yeah." And I was just like, "Did you happen to remember that there was a counter protest, like a peaceful protest going on that same day?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I do. That was everywhere. That was a big deal." And I was like, "Yeah." And then I said, "Do you remember a speaker? Her name was Lacy Dodd." And he goes, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wait, were you that little girl standing next to her?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "This is crazy." I'm getting chills as I'm telling you. He goes, "This is crazy. My mom is very pro-life, and she would drag us to all the March for Life, and so she actually told us, he was like, I knew it was important, but she dragged us there." He was like, "I was 12 years old at the time, and I literally remember that so vividly because it was your mom's speech that," he was like, "I was already pro-life, but he said that was the pivotal moment for him that
Mm.
he realized as a man, what can I do more in the pro-life movement? And it motivated him
Wow.
more. And it was just this chilling experience. As you
Wow.
can imagine, we were just in shock.
Yeah.
And we were just like looking at each other like, what? That's
Whoa.
crazy. And so it felt,
Providential.
yes, it
Totally.
was
Totally.
providential, and it felt like the timing was aligned and
Oh,
everything was meant to.
absolutely.
And Marjorie loved hearing the story too. She's like, you're made for a purpose here, like
Oh,
you're meant to be here. And it was just this really full circle moment because that was such a big event, like I said, that happened in my mom's life, that happened in my life, and that even would touch the person that I would end up working with years later. And so I love telling that story. I love hearing that story. But I had a very special bond, as you can imagine, with James. And we had a lot of conversations. And one of the conversations we had discussed was about University of San Diego. And I told him a little bit about my discouragement. And and he had voiced that at this point in time, just to give clarity on this, we were supposed to return in person in the fall of my senior year.
Okay.
So this was the first time, like, with all this hands-on experience with leaving Students for Life, becoming the president of College Republicans. This is kind of where my life was. So I had all these doubts in my head of what senior year in person is going to look like, despite, all these controversies I already knew I would have been a part of. Just being labeled as the president of College Republicans comes with a lot of responsibility and comes with a lot of weight, as you can imagine. And so we had discussed, I told him about the Students for Life Club, and he said, that would be so cool if you started a pro-life branch under the College Republicans Club. And I was like,
Yep.
that could be interesting. And we just started to discuss. He was like, you know what? It's your senior year. You're in person, because you were robbed like a year and a half of school. He's like, you might as well just
Do it.
go off and do what you're supposed to do. And I was like, okay, so that's exactly what I did. It was that push that I really needed to go into my senior year. And James really encouraged me to go ahead and go forth. And it always starts with that one idea, right? And so when I told my leadership team in our club, they were so on board. I found someone that was going to head the branch, and they were so excited about it. There were a lot of unknowns, but we knew that this was going to be really good exposure, and it was something that we need to fill that gap, right, at our school, at our Catholic university. So we end up starting the pro-life branch called Toreros for Life after our mascot. And we started our own social media account, but we made it clear that it was under College Republicans because we knew we had to follow our Constitution and our bylaws. I think when you have a position like this, you always have to be ahead of everything because the school's going to come at you. So you just have to have all your things like make
Ducks
sure
in a row.
yes, all my ducks in a row. Exactly. So I had all my ducks in a row, and we made sure that it was publicized under College Republicans. So when we returned to the fall and we had this whole idea and it became moving, we started to get more involved. We counter protested the Women's March. We volunteered at a pregnancy center. Like, we started doing all of these things. We end up getting an email from the school saying what you're doing with this club, no one approved of. And they also went on to say that we were mimicking or replicating another club on campus. And we're like, oh, here we go. So I think in our heads, we weren't surprised at all. Because we just know how the school is, we just were not surprised. And so we had a meeting with the Associated Student Government several weeks later. FYI. They were very slow to respond. And at this point, I had made a connection with Students for Life. I should mention this because I had submitted an application to have Kristen Hawkins potentially come to speak at the University of San Diego. So at this point, I had known some people around me within the organization, and I actually told them what happened, and they were immediately like, okay, all hands on deck, we're going to help you out. This is what you need to say. And if they question you on certain things, say, fine, I'm going to get my attorney involved. That had to be the best line I dropped in that meeting.
That's awesome.
And so that's exactly what happened. I told them, I was like, if this is a problem, I will have to get my attorney involved. And I don't think they believed me. But that actually did happen, fun fact. And in the long run, we ended up getting approved just fine after we had to prove basically that Students for Life is different than Toreros for Life because we're doing all of these completely different things and we want to be associated with the national organization where it seems like this group wants to do every single issue except abortion, and they don't want to be associated with the national organization. So that's
even though they share the same name.
Exactly.
yeah, so as you can imagine, that was very confusing, but once we cleared all of that up, they couldn't say anything. So they had no choice but to approve us. And so at that point, we were then gearing up to have Kristen Hawkins come speak at the University of San Diego. And this ended up happening November 11th of 2021. And I just want to give a preface and a timeline for this. At this point in time, we don't have a leak of the Supreme Court. We don't know anything about a post-Roe America quite yet. What's happening at this point is we at this point knew that the Supreme Court was going to just hear a case from Mississippi talking about a bill that says, okay, we need to ban abortions after 15 weeks if a baby can feel pain. So we just knew that they were going to hear it, and we knew that they were going to hear it December 1st. So with that timeline, it had been a few weeks before that hearing was going to take place, just to give you a preface. And so when we advertised for the event, the posters were very unapologetic. They had Kristen's face on it, and then it said the future is anti-abortion with the suburb of preparing for a post-Roe America. As you can imagine, that's very triggering for a lot of people, and I think that caught a lot of students off guard. Despite being at a Catholic and private university, frankly, it doesn't matter. There will be people who will be offended no matter what. But we advertised this like crazy. We put flyers and posters everywhere that we could, that we were allowed to. And then we also had A-frames, which were like pretty tall, if you can imagine them. So we had like huge printed things that the school printed for us, their money, not ours. Right. And so they were printed on the A-frames, I think 6. We just went off. We just had 6 or 7 A-frames, and we spread them all over campus.
Wow.
The next day, I would say one was still there, and it was still completely vandalized. So all of them were either snatched, ripped away, thrown away. A-frames were hidden. Some people dragged them other places, just to give you an idea of what our club was up against. And so we're like, okay, well, we're not going to let you guys stop our advertising because we need a good and strong showing. So I was very motivated to continue to put all of the poster and all of the flyers up and ask more money from the school to print more copies. So that's exactly what we did. And later, a few weeks later, we weren't surprised when there was this organization. Let me make it clear that it was never approved by USD for obvious reasons. There's a club called Gender Equity and Sex Positivity, simply known as GESP. And this is a group of students, mostly students at USD, that got together and they would post things, as you can imagine.
Can I say something on that?
Yes.
So I don't know Notre Dame's version of that same type club is actually called Irish for Reproductive Health. I'm not sure if you've heard about it, Meredith. No. So actually they're one that Sycamore Trust highlights them because of just different things that they've done on campus. But anyway.
Because they're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
So this group is making its way across, let me make it clear, private and.
Yeah, so they're actually chapters of a national organization that's called Student Coalition for Reproductive Justice. And they're organizing reproductive justice clubs on Catholic colleges and universities specifically. So, and
Hey.
like St. Mary's one is called Smicks for Choice. They all have Instagram accounts. And so this is the opposition, basically.
Right.
The
But
pro-life.
again, it's one of those ways where they were trying to maneuver themselves to be relevant at USD without being without having the perks to being an approved club. And we did have that, and they didn't have that. But regardless, on social media, we find an Instagram post. I had been stalking because I knew something was going to come from them, and they posted a social media post that said, hey, come join us for a counter protest for our reproductive rights against this pro-life speaker, Kristen Hawkins. And then it said, wear purple because we don't want to just wear pink, because not only women experience abortion, but apparently men do too. Like have abortions. Men have abortions.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, not are affected by, but have abortions.
No.
So they were all wearing purple, and that was really ironic to us because purple is the color of Students for Life. And we were like, oh, that's great. Yeah, represent Students for Life. That's awesome. So
that was so funny when Kristen Hawkins got in front of the protesters and said, these are my fans behind me.
Yeah. So then I made sure that the school was aware of this and that we would have public safety be present there at the event. And they labeled this as a silent protest. That did not happen. That didn't last long at all. So when we got there, they were harassing and using very vulgar language to the students that were simply coming into our event. We had students traveling from all different colleges and high schools around the area as well. So I think they actually did find it funny, but I can imagine they were also probably like, whoa, this is a lot. Like, I just wanted to go to the Kristen Hawkins event. So I think it was a realization of, wow, this is actually happening, and it's happening at a Catholic university. And so they were behind this line, and I would say it was about 100 protesters. It was a pretty decent amount of a showing.
Solid. Wow.
Yeah, so it was strong inside and outside. We had a popular presence both inside and outside. And so at that point, public safety was making sure that they were behind this line, because we had her at a building, it was 7:30 at night, but we had her in a building where students were living on campus, and there were some classes going on as well. And so to our knowledge, they had only been approved for about an hour to stand behind the line, and to, they were supposed to be silent, but that, they were yelling chants and all that. So they had signs that said, kill them kids. That was the first time I've ever seen or heard that phrase, which is crazy because now you just see that like daily, that phrase. But that was the first time I had been exposed to something like that. There was a girl wearing a hanger as a necklace on her neck. And there was some vulgar, very aggressive things. And so obviously,
it was also weird for you too, because like you knew a lot of these people.
I did, and they definitely knew me. I think I'd come face to face with a lot of girls that I knew from sororities. I was never involved in a sorority, but it's just you kind of know through friends or like whatnot, through classes, but they definitely knew who I was. And so when Kristen arrived, if you know her kind of personality, she feeds off of this kind of stuff. So when she got there, she was like, hi guys, like Mary Logan, take a picture with me in front of my fans. Like she did say that, like my mom said, it was hilarious. And she was trying to have dialogue with them, inviting them into the event to ask questions. Like she did leave that open to them, which they said no to, of course. But so at one point, when Kristen's speaking, it's about an hour in, the protesters move from being in front of the building to the side of the building so that you can see through the window what's going on. And they end up climbing up the stairs, banging their signs against the window. And one of the team members and my leadership team goes up to, it's our student of, she's the vice president of students. And she goes up there and she's like, are you kidding me? Do you not see what's going on? Because she had the power to tell public safety, go get the students that's getting out of hand, and she wasn't doing that. And
Wow.
so she went off on her and she was like, you need to be doing your job. I was like, whoa, okay, yeah. And so she was like, you need to be doing your job. Like, we're having an event, we're being peaceful, they're being loud and disruptive. Like we had the understanding that they were going to be approved over there, not here. And so they were very loud, and Kristen made some comments about it throughout the night. It was pretty funny. But I think it really went to show of which side do you want to be on?
Yeah.
Do you want to be on the side that's screaming and just vile and aggressive, or do you want to be on the side of like fighters who are going to take that but continue to spread the pro-life and pro-love message, you know? And so after that, I can't say it was too bad. It was definitely a successful event because one, we got people talking about a very heated topic. Two, we were honestly just trying to prepare people for a post-Roe America because we felt it. We felt it that it was going to come soon. And I think it was either disbelief, denial, or just that they really didn't know about the case and what could potentially happen, or that they could bully their way into trying to change Supreme Court justices' minds on this. But that did not happen, right? We saw that. And so I think, anyways, just to wrap everything up, I think from that, it really became clear why I was at USD, and everything kind of started to make sense of all these events that happened in this chronological order, because following the talk with Kristen, a few months later, I ended up interviewing for a job with Students for Life of America, and they offered me the California Regional Coordinator position. And so I'm stationed in Los Angeles area, and I work with the high school and college groups and homeschool groups. And I think that's really cool that if I've experienced that much from a student's perspective, like I am ready to lead all of these other groups who are going through all of these other free speech issues, or just need more of a boost or need training, because our goal is to equip and mobilize and train the next generation of pro-life leaders. And I think that's such a cool job to be able to, do that as a full-time job, really, and help these students. And I understand it from a student perspective, and now from this position that it's just very rewarding to see that. So that's how I got.
And now you're the one bringing the tours to colleges and universities.
Right. Yeah. So we had the tour from Students for Life come. Of course, the school had issues with both of the tours actually, but that didn't stop us. So, but now, Students for Life offers a fall tour and a spring tour where we focus on a specific theme, and then we have panels that we bring to. It's only college campuses. We bring to college campuses where we're just trying to have conversations with students on campus. And this next spring, our tour will be on chemical abortions, which is particularly in California, a very big fight that we are facing right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you are battle ready. I'm going to be sending you like 5 verses that were coming to mind when you're sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Because I see how you were set apart for a purpose. From your mother's womb, the Lord knew his plan before you were even in her womb. And he is just, that whole SD experience was your training. It was your battleground. And he's like, and here we go. And I think
absolutely,
it's so cool. I think right now, he's just lining up warriors just in these awful battles where obviously we know demonic. You come face to face with it. It's not hard for me to walk in a store and see demonic, I see it in people. And then when you see people rage, and I always say, what really happened that got you like that? What are you so angry about? It's probably not even the issue you think it is, So I think it's just awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. And I have chills because I can't wait to see how much more the Lord uses you. And just the timing. Roe v. Wade. Just crazy.
2022. Right. Like who would have
Yeah,
thought that you would have landed that job the year that Roe v. Wade was
Yeah.
overturned?
it happened right before. It's
Ah,
because overturning Roe v. Wade happened June 24th, and I started my job early July. So I literally started my job like I was working as a full-time student. Well, not working as a full, but like I was a full-time student in a not post-Roe America. And then suddenly before I start my job in the pro-life movement, it's in a post-Roe America. Like that's so crazy.
yeah, talk
Um,
about divine direction. God is ordering every
Yeah.
single one of your steps.
yeah.
And
Yeah, and it's funny because I even had people asking me like, "So are you out of a job now?" And I'm like, "What are you
yeah,
talking about? My job
opposite.
just started." Like,
Yeah, that
I
is,
know, and that's what I was going to tell you. I recently saw Abby Johnson
yeah.
speak at my parish, and she just re-emphasized to everyone just because Roe v. Wade was overturned, we're not done because
No,
evil never stops.
no.
And chemical abortions are now available in every state, and the Holocaust is still going on. Nothing has changed,
Nope. Nope.
So,
He's not, the devil's not stopping. I mean,
right.
he's hard at work, but we know that the Lord is preparing his battle. He's his warriors for battle, and just it's like when you see that. Like I saw that billboard. I don't know where Seattle, or whatever, with the kill
Oh,
them.
yeah, Portland. Yep.
Yeah, Portland, of course, Portland. And
Right.
I look at that, and I'm like, it's just you see it, and it's just like devil, devil. He is just he. It's like he doesn't
Mhm.
like it. He doesn't
Right.
like what
Right.
it's doing.
Exactly.
So I don't know. So I did want
Exactly.
to. Well, first of all, thank you. That was awesome. I mean, just your whole testament, both of you, just the whole thing, I
Oh.
think is going to speak hope into people, and not just your generation, but my generation of moms who hope that your generation, like I have a 3-year-old, and I hope that she is pro-life, but I also have 20 somethings, stepchildren, and there's a very different view, I think, in your generation, not you per
Mhm.
se, but a lot of young women I have seen. It is this whole reproductive rights. And
Mhm.
even I've seen their moms kind of, how could we let this happen? You've removed our rights as women. And it makes me sick to my stomach because it's like this intergenerational, um, weaponizing to me. And I just didn't know what your thoughts were on that and your experience with your friends that are on that level.
yeah, I mean, generation, I think my mom can attest to this, has always been something that's fascinated me, like these different types of generations. And um, Gen Z in particular, I think has a stigma of being predominantly pro-abortion, but at the same time, I think we have to think about, first of all, the leaders ahead of us and before us that even got us to the point that we are right now, because this wouldn't have happened without, people speaking up, starting the annual March for Life, and continuing that legacy and voting certain people in office to make certain decisions about certain bills or who was going to be on the Supreme Court. So I think you have these things that were laid out ahead of our time. And I think for me, it's been really interesting because when I've gone to rallies or counter protested at things, let me say that a majority of the time, I would say it's women over their 50s that are there.
Interesting.
And they hold signs like, I've had this sign since 1973 and I'm still fighting for the same thing. And when I say that, I really mean it, that our generation is an outlier and we're very different in the sense of we've grown up with technology and social media, and apparently social media makes or breaks friendships. That's the thing that we have experienced, which I don't think was ever a thing before. And so I think now when you look at that, a lot of the people that I surround myself with, not by choice, end up agreeing with me because I think I have a good judgment of character of who I think are really good friends. But of course, when you have friends from your childhood, they grow up you have different paths, they don't align. And I definitely have experienced the grief of losing friendships, and that comes with being yourself and
Oh.
and standing up for what you believe is right. But if they couldn't support you, with who you are now, then I guess they were never a really true friend anyways. And I remember when a particular situation happened, I was very sad, and I was talking to my boyfriend about it at the time, and he had told me and reminded me just something I needed to hear, was that friends are like seasons, and that they come into your life when they're supposed to come, but sometimes they're not always meant to stay. And I carried that with me because I think that's really powerful, in the sense of, it was sad because this was a childhood friend that understood my situation, and like understood that she saw like my mom raised me as a young child, and then saw my dad adopted me. And then it was me being outspokenly pro-life that eventually it was just enough for her. And so I think when we are reminded of these situations of, I think it was a lesson learned that, again, you can say that you don't care what people think, like I was saying earlier, but it still affects you, and it's still going to hurt. But the thing that keeps me going is the fact that this movement and what I'm doing is bigger than myself.
Yep.
It's not about me. I just want to share, anything I can with anyone about the issue, but it's about 64 million lives that have been lost to abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about using your voice, if you're privileged enough to have one, to speak for those who can't. And it's about giving the woman resources that she needs in that time of fear and loneliness. Like, that's more powerful, and that's something that I would rather just remember that I did, as opposed to pretending to be someone I'm not, just to appease a certain group of people. So I think once you get to that point where you're confident in who you are and who you're supposed to be, your real friends will be there for you, and your family, of course. And so I think that's all that matters.
Well, that is a very mature perspective, young lady.
Well, it took me a while to get there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And have it, and just knowing that this was the call on your life, it kind of made you get there, and it's like, not in a bad way, but in a good way.
Right. But it's not easy. It's not always easy.
Yeah, our generation's very hostile. I have come to face some very interesting people traveling to different college campuses. Not only that, but in California, which is a whole other different level. And so there's been people who just growl at me. There's been men who tried to steal my A-frame on their skateboard.
You had clowns.
I've had people that have dressed up as clowns holding signs, "Don't listen to clowns." I'm like, did you look in the mirror? I can't make this stuff up.
Wow.
Oh, did you want to tell Meredith more about your calling to write an open letter to Taylor Swift?
Oh yeah, tell me that real quick.
Your idol.
Yeah, so going into this idea, that's a good segue into like this culture, right? I have been, my mom knows I've been a Taylor Swift fan literally since 2007. And
the very beginning.
She's literally, she's grown up with me. I've grown up with her. She doesn't even know who I am, but her eras,
Taylor Swift's eras have been Mary Logan's own eras.
Yes, for sure. So she's definitely helped me a lot with just a lot of different things that have happened throughout my life. It was her music. It was always about her music. And if you remember, in 2018 was the first time she actually ever became political. And that was hard to see, but I was like still like lingering hope, because she didn't touch the abortion issue. I was like, well, that's actually going to be it for me. And it was coming because her next album, Love Her, was extremely political, and I could see the realm that it was going into, and I was like, "Ooh, this is not good." And so around the time that album released, she had an article with The Guardian where it was very random, but they ended up bringing up politics, and then she said in a quote, "Well, I'm obviously pro-choice," and I was like, wait, what do you mean obviously? Like, what does that even mean? And so I was taken back by that a lot. And so really this article started in 2018 or it was 2019, I guess, with that article from The Guardian. And it was one of those things where it wasn't the right timing yet. And it was one of those things where it was kind of written, it needed to be updated, but it was like putting it in a drawer and just closing it and leaving it there. And I was so fearful that it would ruin my chances of meeting her, or that fans weren't gonna like me, or say I was a fake Swiftie and like all these things. So I kind of, yeah, like I put the stop on it, and I just didn't think about it for a while. And then when I got the job at Students for Life, a really great opportunity that they have had is being able to write articles, and they're able to publish them on your behalf. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the job is you can write about anything, and well, I mean, it gets approved, but you can write about what you want to write about, and they will help you and work with you to publish it. And so my mom was the one that said, well, I think now is a good time because we're in this post-Roe America. She had made a tweet, of course, about Roe v. Wade being overturned and said that it was a disappointment and it steps back women so far. And I'm like, okay. And so again, I'm just like brushing it off a little bit. And so by the time, it was like November, and Taylor's birthday was around the corner. It was going to be her 33rd birthday, December 13th. And my mom was like, I think that would be a really good time to connect this article. We'll just update it and make it so that it's, kind of inclined to the subject of her birthday. And because originally it was going to be, maybe we can talk about it when she releases her re-released Taylor's version recording of Speak Now, because Speak Now is my favorite album, but it's also about like speaking up and saying what you need to say in that moment. But this became a better time, I think, to continue that relevancy. So wrote the article, and one of the best lines I think that's in there that really showcases the issue is, if you remember her whole Ticketmaster fiasco, all of these fans were trying to get tickets, and there was she ended up breaking records for the Taylor Swift Eras tour, and it ended up breaking records for the most amount of people who bought tickets in a single day. It sold out, but it was like not good. There were all these problems going on. And so we were able to connect that with the amount of abortions that actually happen, that have happened since Roe v. Wade, which is the fact that she was going to do a 53 stadium tour. And every tour on average holds about 70,000 people. And so if she was supposedly if all the fans that were waiting to buy these tickets, it said in an article, would fill up about 900 of these stadiums, then you get a number of 63 million fans. Jeez. That she had that many fans on demand that wanted tickets.
Wow.
Then compare that to the number of, that's a lot of fans, Taylor, but that's the same amount of people that have been lost to abortion. And making that connection, and I think really helped further the narrative of like, you have all these fans, but like they wouldn't be here if they didn't have life, or they weren't given a chance.
Right. And it gives the pop culture some perspective on what that number really.
Yeah. And I think it's okay that you can love an artist and not it's okay to come out and disagree with them. Like, that's okay. Like, it's okay to criticize someone that you love in a respectful way that hopefully they can sit with and think about. But I know it's a long chance of her seeing it, so it was more for me to get it off my chest, but also to find those fans that also agreed with me. And there were several. I was shocked. I was shocked by the amount of people who were sharing it, relating to it. It was a really beautiful thing. So
it turns out there's a lot of pro-life Swifties.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But you gave a voice to those women that are the Swifties,
And men. Lots of male Swifties too.
Oh yeah, I was going to say her Swifties. But I also think, I always say, having been in politics, I will see these singers and stuff and movie stars start getting, and it's bad now. They all think they're these authorities on politics.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
stick to what you do.
yes.
Stay
Just
in your lane.
stop.
Stick to music.
Yeah, like, get out of it.
Stick
Get out of that.
to, right,
Yeah, and they just think they're more relevant. I don't know. That's a whole other
right.
podcast. But it's I think it's good that you did that because the
Yeah, because it's all about changing the culture and just changing hearts and minds.
yeah, yeah. And I think you're going to keep doing it. I think that I think the world is in. I mean, some people say the world's going to hell in a handbasket, but I think we're kind of in the end times of our world, and I really think that I think the Lord's going to keep using you mightily, and I think it's only going to get more intense, but you're ready, you know,
Hmm.
Thank
because
you.
each little battle is just more preparation, you
Hmm.
know. So, and you got this awesome mom who, you know,
Oh,
you guys are living it. You're living the story, you know. It's just the
oh.
coolest. It's just so great. Um, so since we've gone over a little bit, I guess I'll just close up. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure? Uh,
I would say maybe just what you, yeah, about the
yeah.
March for
Sorry,
Life
the first thing on my
2023.
list. Please bring that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Uh,
yeah.
Mary Logan, did you want to say just how, just from your perspective, um, how do you see the March for Life being different this year since we're post Roe v. Wade now?
yeah, and if you want to add to it, let me know. Um, so I think the March for Life, this is actually going to be the 50th anniversary of the March for Life. And for the viewers who maybe don't know, the March for Life actually takes place always on the anniversary of Roe, which is very important. That's why we're in DC in January. I know, crazy, but it's a reminder of why we need to fight. And I think obviously with and being in a post-Roe America and Roe v. Wade's now been overturned, we need to be reminded yet again why we need to keep fighting. And let me tell you, like I said, coming from a state as radical and pro-abortion as California, the abortion lobby is not stopping. They are not giving up. They, if anything, are pushing harder, especially as we're seeing an increase in chemical abortions. Chemical abortions we're now going to see in Walgreens, CVS, and also you will see chemical abortions at all of the public universities in California in their health center. This just went into effect January 1st. And
And
what
just
this
like
is
Kristen
doing,
Hawkins said, like at least the FDA used to be concerned about women's health, even though they weren't concerned about the life of the unborn. But now this goes into the realm of, I mean, women are going to die.
Mhm.
right, and women are we are essentially saying that they should fear and they are lonely and we're not going to help you, so we're just going to give you these pills, and it turns their dorm room into a death space and a horrible just really isolating area for her in her own dorm room. So that's not empowering at all. And I think when we need to be reminded of what's going on in certain states, because now it is a state by state battle, we need to be reminded of what's going on in states like California as opposed to Texas and Tennessee, and all these other more pro-life states, because our fight's not over yet. Like it, and I guess I have more of a perspective given that I know it's not going to end until New York and California get rid of these horrible pro-abortion bills that are happening. And so that's why our students are on fire for this movement, because we see it and we're still in the environment of what it looks like to be in a pro-abortion state in a post-Roe America. And so we encourage you to go to the march this year to showcase in numbers how many people agreed, not only agreed with the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, but that we're not going away either. We're going to continue to be the opposition towards this pro-abortion lobby. Even though we have a lot against us, we also have a lot for us, and we need to showcase that through meeting in Washington, D.C., or your local or state march around January. You can probably find it online, but that's going to be really evident and crucial in this fight, because if we're not present at the march, it not only shows that we're not active anymore, but it shows that we're like slacking almost, and we don't have time to do that because we know lives are at stake and we know women need help and resources. So we really do encourage, even though it is going to look a little different as far as our priorities and where our strategies are this year, we can't give up, and we need to continue to fight the good fight.
Yep. Wow.
Do you want to add anything, Mo?
Well, no, like you were saying, like we know we fought hard, but we need to continue the fight. And it's like you said, it's not over. And now it's up to the states.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, it's not right to base someone's value on what state they are located in, as far as the
or conceived in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I know Michigan's bad. I can't remember what the resolution was, but you would see, I talked about it in my podcast, but you would see all these ads about how we're family friendly, and it was just like, no, this thing is evil. It's
right.
Well, I think that's awesome. Well, the whole situation is not awesome, but you're a warrior. You're both warriors, and I do think that I'm so glad you guys could share your story on here today. And before I kind of end it, Mary Logan, how do people find you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on my Instagram. My Instagram is pro@pro.loveprolife. And I don't know if you want to include that or whatever, but you feel free to follow me. I always post about the latest up-to-date news or just my opinion on different things going on. You'd be surprised how much pro-life news you can honestly digest. But yeah, feel free to follow me on that. And yeah, so.
Awesome. Well, ladies.
And and know that you can start. Anyone can start a Students for Life chapter at their high school, homeschool group, or college, anywhere. We have a bunch of groups all over the country, and doesn't matter what state you're in or if you're in a private or a public school, we'll be there to help you out.
Is the website for that studentsforlife.com or? Yes,
studentsforlife.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, ladies, I am just I just pray that the Lord keeps sending you out and blessing you guys, and I can't wait to see what's ahead. And
same for you in your podcast. Thank you so much for having us on this.
Absolutely.
And diving deep into this.
Get real and go deep.
Yeah.
I was on the girl that edits my podcast sent me I was on a guest on somebody's podcast last week, and the woman was like, "I like how you get real," and she texted me, goes, "No wonder your podcast is Get Real." I'm like,
yeah, that's
what we're doing, girls.
Oh, there was one more thing I wanted her to share, but
what's that?
Just like why you just like your perspective as the unborn child and why you feel so passionate.
Okay, yeah. Oops. Okay. Yeah, I can add that real quick. So one of the reasons that I felt so compelled to be part of the pro-life movement, 2009 was the first time I had been exposed to what that meant, to be within the pro-life movement. And I knew it was important at the time, but I didn't have a complete grasp at that point, until I would say 14 or 15 years old, that I felt like I had a different perspective coming from the child in the womb, and especially as a woman, like as a woman in the womb, where were my rights protecting me? And I think that really comes into play in this issue, and why I feel it's important that if I have a voice and if I was born based off of luck, that my mom knew that I was a life and she saw me as life as opposed to a choice. I know that I'm going to make it my mission every single day to speak for those who maybe aren't so lucky or could potentially be saved. And especially hearing the emotions and thoughts that my mom had gone through when finding out she's pregnant, I certainly have put myself into her shoes, and I can imagine how much shock and stress, anxiety, and lonely and fearful you all may feel. And so we make sure, I definitely want to make sure that other women know that they have the support and resources that they need, that there's local pregnancy centers to help her and her child thrive throughout her
also
pregnancy
the
and
men.
beyond.
And also
Yes.
the men.
Yeah.
And that men have, the free counseling that they need to kind of digest and walk through what they're going through. Because I think it's important that they come to grips with what's happened has happened, and you can only move forward with, okay, what's the plan now? Because I think the most empowering thing for a man to do is to defend his girlfriend or wife and his child, because you can't turn your backs on either of them. I think that that's the manly thing to do, is to stand with them and say, I'll take another job. We'll co-parent. We'll get married. We'll figure this out. Whereas if you have a guy that just says, I'll do whatever you want to do, that's actually causing more pressure, and it's actually not making a decision. You don't have a solidified choice yet. So then you're putting that on her, being like, well, I don't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
And that's what she's going to be feeling. And so instead, men need to make sure that they're supporting her and giving her the needs that she deserves.
And not necessarily, like, marriage might not necessarily be the solution, but there are options to co-parent,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Or adoption as well. But yeah.
But I love that you said kind of it's the womb, like the child in the womb has a voice. And how many people, who is that Georgia woman that was like, oh, it's
Lacy Abrams.
Oh, would she say, like, I don't really believe in the sonogram picture, it's fake, there's no
or she said they don't have a heartbeat.
There's no heartbeat at 6 weeks. Well, pretty sure there is. I've seen it. So
no, and it's like, because Mary Logan sees that she was, her life was hanging in the balance at one point, in a way.
Yeah.
And a series of choices in a clinic room. So it's like, if you have that gift and you have that privilege to be alive, then, like, obviously I'm not going to take that for granted, and instead I'm going to speak up. That's more important to me than losing a friend that was probably never a friend. The bigger picture.
And like Meredith had said, if this, and even if, someone listening to this podcast, if this helps one person or saves one life, like, our conversation will have been worth it.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I wanted to do it, because I don't care about the haters, the people that don't agree. It's about what person. Could be a mom, could be a grandma, could be a girl that's about to walk through it. It's like, you just never know who needed it. So with that, I'll let you go speak, Mary Logan. And
well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it, and I'll share it, of course.
Thank you so much, Meredith.
You're so welcome, ladies. All right.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you love this podcast, make sure you leave a review on Spotify, share it with your friends, visit my website, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Get Real with Meredith. See you next time on Guiding God's Daughters.